My mother's voice didn't shake. It didn't hesitate. It didn't soften even for a second. It was cold. It was sharp. It was final. We don't want to see your face at her graduation. Stay home. Don't embarrass us. When she said it, the whole screen froze, not from the internet lag, but from shock. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth. My cousin widened her eyes. My younger sister Grace's smile slowly faded until her face looked like it had forgotten how to breathe. And me, I just sat there, staring, quiet, not because I agreed with her, but because I finally understood. This wasn't anger. This wasn't stress. This wasn't a bad moment. This was how she truly saw me. An embarrassment, a mistake, an unwanted child, and the more she spoke, the deeper the blade twisted. You ruin everything, Elena. You always have. Stay home. Let your sister enjoy her big day without you overshadowing it with your issues. My issues. As if the mere fact of my existence was a burden. As if the world would run smoother without me in it. I felt something inside me break. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, silently, like a thin piece of glass cracking under pressure. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I didn't cry in front of them. I simply turned off my mic, muttered, "Okay," and left the call. The moment the screen went black, the silence in my little apartment felt heavier than ever. That was the day my story truly began. The day my mother cut the last string holding me to a family that never wanted me. The day I whispered to myself, "Fine, watch me build a life you'll beg to be part of." People think cruelty starts with big events. No, it starts with tiny things. A tone, a glance, a comparison, a forgotten event, a memory erased on purpose. Growing up, I learned early that I was the wrong daughter. My mother got pregnant with me too young. My birth interrupted her education. Her marriage to my father was rushed. And somewhere in those lost dreams, I became the symbol of her regret. Meanwhile, Grace arrived 5 years later, planned, celebrated, wanted. Grace got ballet. I got chores. Grace got hugs. I got criticism. Grace got, "Sweetheart, you can be anything." I got, "Stop dreaming. You're not like your sister." My mother didn't need words to show favorites. When Grace walked into a room, the world lit up. When I walked in, they adjusted the lights, the expectations, the conversations, everything, as if I carried a storm behind me. And I thought if I worked hard enough, if I stayed quiet enough, if I earned enough good grades, maybe she would smile at me too. But children don't grow out of wounds. They grow around them. I learned to warn myself. Don't expect affection. Don't expect praise. Don't expect equality. Don't expect love. And the saddest part, I stayed loyal to people who would never choose me. When I left the call, I didn't collapse immediately. At first, I just sat on the edge of my bed staring at my hands. I didn't even cry. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and replaced it with cold air. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time didn't matter. All I could hear replaying in my head was, "We don't want to see your face. Stay home." Your face. As if my existence itself was offensive. Eventually, the tears came. Not dramatic movie tears. Real tears. The kind that feel heavy, soundless, suffocating. I cried until the carpet beneath my knees was damp. I cried until I couldn't breathe properly. Then the crying stopped abruptly, as if my soul ran out of water. I sat there, exhausted, and whispered, "Why am I still trying to belong to people who keep pushing me away?" The room didn't answer. So I stood up, walked to the bathroom, washed my face, looked at my reflection, and for the first time, truly saw myself. Not as a daughter, not as a disappointment, not as a shadow behind Grace, but as a human being. A human being who deserved better. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I will stop begging for love. I will build a life that makes their rejection irrelevant. I will rise so high that they will need binoculars just to find the memory of who I used to be. My apartment was small. The kind of small where you could cook, study, and cry without moving from the same spot. But it was mine. The ceiling had a crack shaped like a lightning bolt. The heater rattled when it worked, which wasn't often. The window blinds were bent in strange angles. And the carpet was older than I was. But there, on the peeling wall beside my desk, I taped a white piece of paper that read, "Prove them wrong." Every night after my cafe job, I sat at that tiny desk. Everyone else my age partied, traveled, slept peacefully. I studied business, marketing, communication, finance, leadership, human psychology. My laptop fan screamed, my brain burned, my back ached, but I kept going. Because the alternative, staying the same, felt like suffocating. I learned how social media worked, how ads worked, how branding worked, how consumer psychology worked, and slowly, painfully, relentlessly, I sharpened myself into someone more capable than the girl they dismissed. With $400 saved, I started my first business. A small handmade jewelry shop. I poured everything into it: designs, packaging, photos, marketing. I worked until my fingers were numb. And then I launched. For weeks, nothing happened. 1 sale, 2 returns, 3 complaints, 1 negative review that shattered me. Unprofessional, not worth the money. I stared at that comment for hours. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. You ruin everything. And for a moment, I believed her. I closed the shop. I turned off the lights, closed my laptop, lay on the floor, and cried again, not because the business failed, but because I was afraid she was right about me. But after hours of crying, a strange calm settled over me. A realization: failure wasn't my enemy, giving up was. So I whispered to myself, this is not the end. Start again. And I did. Success is loud. Growth is silent. People noticed me only when my life started shining, but no one saw the years I spent in darkness. The years of waking up at 5 a.m., going to work at the cafe, coming home exhausted, studying until 3 a.m., drinking cheap instant coffee, missing holidays, avoiding calls, outgrowing people, losing people, battling loneliness, losing myself, rebuilding myself, failing again, starting again, failing again, starting again. Those were my chrysalis years, the dark cocoon stage before a butterfly emerges. Nobody celebrates you in your chrysalis. Nobody claps for you. Nobody supports you. Nobody believes in you. They just see you disappear and assume you're losing. Meanwhile, you are becoming. After 3 years of invisible work, I received an email. Hi Elena, we found your portfolio online. Do you take freelance clients for social media management? My heart raced. Someone saw me. Someone believed I could help. Someone wanted my skills. I undercharged, of course. I was still scared to ask for too much, but I put every drop of effort into that client. I studied their brand, fixed their content, optimized their strategy, revamped their visuals, updated their messaging, ran small ads, answered their questions day and night. And within a month, their engagement doubled. Their sales increased. Their audience grew. They were thrilled. They referred me to 2 more clients. Those 2 led to 10. Those 10 led to 50. I opened an agency, hired an assistant, then 2 more, then a whole remote team. My tiny apartment couldn't contain my dreams anymore. So I moved into a bigger one, then a better one, then a home of my own. One afternoon, while reviewing a client's project, my phone buzzed. I froze when I saw the caller ID. Mom, the same woman who told me not to show my face at the graduation. I debated ignoring the call, but curiosity forced me to swipe, accept. Her voice was suddenly honey-sweet. Elena, hi sweetheart, Grace told us you're doing well. We're all so proud of you. Proud? Where was this pride when I cried alone? When I begged for encouragement? When she humiliated me on a family call? I let her talk, about how I should visit. How everyone missed me, how the family needed to reconnect. I replied, I'm busy, maybe another time. For the first time ever, I didn't feel guilty. That was freedom. My agency continued to grow. One day, an email arrived inviting me to speak at a global entrepreneurship conference. They wanted me, the girl who slept in a storage room. Me, the girl who hid her tears. Me, the girl told to stay home so she wouldn't ruin pictures. Me, the girl who wasn't wanted at her own sister's graduation. I stood backstage trembling slightly. When I stepped onto the stage, the bright lights blinded me, but the applause healed something deep inside my chest. I began my speech with the same sentence my mother used to destroy me. We don't want to see your face at her graduation. The hall grew still. Then I told them how those words became rocket fuel. How rejection redirected my destiny. How pain sharpened me. How darkness built me. How being unwanted taught me to want myself. 700 people stood up and applauded. A standing ovation. In that moment, I realized. The people who doubt you are often the ones who ignite your greatness. Months later, another call came. My mother again. But this time, her voice broke. Elena, I'm sorry. For everything. I was wrong. You didn't deserve any of it. I waited for anger. It didn't come. I waited for bitterness. It didn't come. Because I no longer needed her apology to feel whole. I had already healed myself. I had already built myself. I had already become someone stronger than the girl she abandoned emotionally. So I simply said, "Thank you," and I meant it, not because her words fixed anything, but because I no longer needed them to. I travel the world, run a global agency, mentor young women, speak at events, donate to shelters, build programs, live freely, live loudly, live proudly, and every time I look in the mirror, I see a woman who wasn't chosen, but chose herself, a woman who wasn't loved, but learned to love herself, a woman who wasn't supported, but built her own foundation, a woman who wasn't wanted, but became unforgettable. If you have ever been rejected, if you have ever been the forgotten one, if you have ever cried alone at night, if you have ever wondered why you weren't enough, hear me, you are not defined by who hurt you. You are defined by who you become after they do. Pain is not punishment, pain is a push, pain is a forge, pain is a teacher, pain is a beginning. You can rise, you can rebuild, you can reinvent, you can reclaim yourself. Your story is not over. It's just starting. Success didn't arrive like fireworks. It didn't come with applause or celebrations. It arrived quietly, like dawn, slow, soft, patient. But once the sun began to rise, nothing could stop it. I started waking up every morning with a feeling I had never known. Purpose, not the desperate kind that comes from trying to earn someone's approval. Not the fragile kind that breaks when someone criticizes you. This was different. This was the kind of purpose that comes when you finally realize, my life is mine, my future is mine, my story is mine. I no longer waited for validation. I no longer checked my phone hoping for messages from people who never cared. I no longer planned my life around the possibility of earning my mother's affection. Instead, I built myself. Piece by piece, pain had stripped me down to my core, and from that core, I rebuilt everything. One morning, while reviewing some analytics, I received a message from a major brand. A real brand, one I had admired for years. They said, "We've heard about your work. Can we schedule a meeting?" I stared at the email so long the text blurred. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to dance in my kitchen. But the strongest part of me, the part that had been forged through rejection, whispered, "You earned this. Now act like it." The meeting came. They asked about my strategies, my vision, my past work. And for the first time ever, I spoke with confidence, not arrogance, not fear, not self-doubt, but confidence born from thousands of hours of unrecognized effort. At the end of the meeting, they said, "We'd like to work with you." That project paid more than my first 2 years of working combined. And that payment did something powerful. It erased the last traces of the voice in my head that said I wasn't enough. Weeks later, my phone buzzed. The screen showed, "Grace Yellow Heart." I hesitated. Our relationship had always been complicated. Not because she was unkind, she wasn't. But because she was always shielded from the darker parts of the family dynamic. She grew up loved, cherished, protected. She knew mom favored her, but she didn't understand the damage that favoritism caused. When I answered the call, her voice was soft, cautious. "Elena, can we talk?" I sighed. "We are talking. No, I mean really talk. I feel like I owe you an apology." I didn't say anything. She continued. "I didn't know. I didn't see it. I never realized how differently mom treated us. I just thought she was strict with you because you were older. I didn't know she made you feel unwanted." Made me feel, she told me clearly, repeatedly, but I didn't say that aloud. Grace sniffled, clearly crying. "Elena, I'm so sorry you had to celebrate my graduation alone." Something in those words cracked me open. Not in a painful way, in a human way. Because Grace wasn't my enemy. She was a child, just like I once was, shaped by the environment she grew up in. I took a deep breath. "It wasn't your fault, Grace." She cried harder. We talked for almost 2 hours, honestly, openly, vulnerably. That was the first conversation where I didn't feel like her shadow. That was the first time she saw me, really saw me. And somehow, some way, we became sisters again. I realized something important. My goal was never to prove my mother wrong. It was to prove my younger self right. The little girl who used to cry quietly in the bathroom. The teenager who read books to escape reality. The young woman who felt invisible on every holiday. The version of me who waited years for a love that never came. I wanted her to see that staying alive was worth it. That trying was worth it. That growing was worth it. That healing was worth it. So, I built routines, morning journaling, night walks, meditation, good food, better friends, work-life balance, boundaries, the thing I never had before. I quit letting people cross the lines I never had the courage to draw. I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped explaining why I didn't want to visit toxic people. I stopped shrinking so others could feel tall. A year later, I was nominated for an award in my industry. Best Digital Strategist of the Year. I didn't expect to win. But I went. I wore a black dress I had saved for something special, the kind of dress my younger self would never have imagined wearing. When they announced my name as the winner, I froze. For a moment, I genuinely thought it was a mistake. But then applause filled the room. Strangers cheering, peers congratulating me, and as I walked to the stage to accept the award, I felt tears burning in my eyes. Not because of the recognition, but because the girl who cried alone after the graduation rejection. The girl who ate noodles for a week because she couldn't afford groceries. The girl who felt unwanted, had finally stepped into the light. When I held the trophy, I whispered to myself, "You made it out." One quiet Sunday, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document. Without planning, I began typing. "Dear Mom," but it wasn't a letter of anger, or accusation, or resentment. It was a letter of truth. I told her everything I had never said, not to hurt her, but to release myself. I wrote, "You didn't break me, even though you tried. You pushed me away, and I learned to stand on my own. You didn't want to see my face at the graduation, but now the world does." When I finished writing, I exhaled deeply. Then, I deleted the letter. I didn't need her to read it. The healing was for me. I started hosting workshops for young women dealing with family trauma. At the first workshop, I expected 10 to 15 attendees. Over 200 came. Some cried the moment they entered the room. Some hugged me tightly as if they'd known me forever. Some said, "I thought I was the only one living this kind of pain." I told them, "You're not alone. You're not broken. You're not unworthy. You're not unlovable. You're not destined to repeat the pain you were raised in." We shared stories. We shared tears. We shared healing. And for the first time, I realized, my pain wasn't wasted. It became my purpose. Months later, I visited home. Not to reconcile, not to confront, but to close a chapter. When my mother saw me, she froze. Not because I had changed physically, but because I no longer carried the quiet desperation she was used to seeing. I stood tall, calm, confident, unbothered, healed. "Elena," she whispered. I nodded politely. "Hi." She swallowed hard, struggling for words. "You look so different." "No, Mom," I said softly. "I finally look like myself." She cried, real tears this time. "I didn't know how much I hurt you." "I know," I replied gently. "But I learned how to heal without waiting for you." She cried harder, but I didn't, because I had already cried all the tears she deserved. Now, all that remained was peace. The house was silent when I returned that evening, but inside me a storm was roaring. Not the kind that destroys. The kind that creates. Every inch of me trembled with the echo of my mom's words from the Zoom call. "We don't want to see your face at her graduation." Those words were supposed to break me. Instead, they awakened something ancient, something fierce. I stood in the doorway of my small room, fingers still shaking, breath uneven. For a long moment I didn't move. I just stared out the window at the darkening sky and whispered silently to myself, "You don't get to decide who I become." Then something inside me hardened. Not bitterness, not revenge, but a decision, a choice that would redefine my whole life. I sat at my desk, turned on the small lamp, and opened my old notebook, the one filled with scribbles, half-written dreams, unfinished plans. Tonight, I didn't write dreams. I wrote vows. Big, impossible-sounding, heart-shaking vows. I wrote 3 sentences. 1. No one's rejection will ever break me again. 2. No one's voice will be louder than my own self-belief. 3. I will rise so high that even my scars become my power. As I wrote the last sentence, tears filled my eyes, not from sadness, but from clarity. This was the first time in my life I wasn't waiting to be loved. I was choosing to love myself enough to fight. Later that night, when the house was wrapped in silence, someone knocked on my door. A soft knock. Unusual. It was my stepmother. She never knocked. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She stepped inside and sat down, not on edge like she usually did, not defensive, but exhausted. Her eyes were red, not angry red, broken red. For a minute, she didn't speak. Then in a trembling voice she said, Don't take what I said earlier too personally. I laughed softly, a sad, tired laugh. Those words weren't light enough to ignore, I said. But they won't define me. She lowered her head, ashamed. I said it out of anger. I shouldn't have. Her voice cracked. It's hard to share your heart when you never learned how. I stared at her, and for the first time, I didn't see a villain. I saw a human being, flawed, confused, scared of love just like me. For the first time, I spoke honestly, without fear. I never expected your love. I just wanted to feel like I wasn't an outsider in my own home. She closed her eyes as if the words pierced something deep inside her. Silence filled the room, heavy, raw, revealing. Then she whispered, "You have a strength in you, a kind I've never had. With that strength, you can go farther than all of us." I didn't reply. I didn't soften. But inside, a tiny, tiny flicker of healing appeared. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just possibility. From that night onward, my entire life shifted. I wasn't the invisible girl anymore. I wasn't the forgotten one in the family. I wasn't the disappointment. Every morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. Not because someone told me to. Because I refused to waste another day being who they thought I was. I built a routine that reshaped my mind. 10 minutes of silence. 20 minutes of journaling. 1 hour of reading. 30 minutes of English practice. 40 minutes of online courses. Every morning felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Every small habit was a brick in the foundation of my new identity. Day by day, I became sharper, stronger, more intentional, and somewhere between those early mornings and late night study sessions, I stopped feeling like the girl they rejected. I started feeling like the woman I was meant to become. One afternoon, my teacher called me aside. "What happened to you?" she asked, looking at my recent test scores. "You've changed. Your work, it's on a different level." I smiled, faintly. "Sometimes," I said, "you need one painful moment to wake up." She nodded thoughtfully. "With this kind of fire inside you," she said, "you'll go places none of them expect." As I walked home that day, I felt something new in my chest. Hope, and a strange, powerful sense of purpose. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "One day, I will inspire someone the way no one ever inspired me." Every night, the same sentence repeated in my mind. "We don't want to see your face at her graduation." But now, it didn't hurt. It ignited me. Those words became my motivation to checkmark work harder, checkmark study deeper, checkmark apply to universities, checkmark build my confidence, checkmark push beyond every limit they set for me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted transformation. And slowly, I became the version of myself they could never imagine. Some wounds stay forever. Some scars remain visible, but scars are not signs of weakness, they are proof you survived what was meant to break you. That night, after the Zoom call that was supposed to destroy me, I didn't break, I rebuilt, and this is only the beginning. If you want, I can now write. The program orientation was held at a large conference hall downtown. The building was massive, tall windows reflecting the morning sun. As I walked in, I felt tiny, the way I always felt entering places I never thought I belonged. Students from wealthy families were there, confident, polished, wearing expensive clothes, their voices loud with self-assurance. I stood alone in the crowd, clutching my notebook like a shield. A girl in a designer coat whispered to her friend, "Who's that? Never seen her before." They glanced at me briefly. I swallowed hard. Old insecurities rose inside me. "You don't belong here. You're not as talented as them. You don't fit their world." But then another voice, a stronger one, cut through the fear. "You earned your place here. They didn't give it to you." I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and walked in. During the first workshop, we were asked to stand up and introduce ourselves, not with our names, but with our stories. My heart dropped. My story, the one filled with brokenness, rejection, abandonment. The others went first. One spoke about her charity work. Another about his business startup. Another about being student president. Then it was my turn. My pulse hammered. My palms sweated. My throat tightened. But slowly, I stood. Dozens of eyes turned to me. I took a shaky breath and said, "My story isn't glamorous. I come from a home where I've often felt invisible. Where my voice didn't matter. Where my presence felt like an inconvenience. But instead of letting that break me, it became the fire that pushes me." The room fell silent. I continued, "I'm here because I want to turn pain into purpose. And I want to prove, first to myself, then to others, that where you start doesn't determine how far you go. When I sat down, the room erupted in applause. Not polite applause, not forced applause, real, heartfelt applause. For the first time in my life, my story, the one I used to hide, became my strength. After the session, the program director, a tall woman with silver hair and sharp, kind eyes, approached me. "You have something rare," she said. I blinked, confused. "Yes," she smiled. "Authenticity. You don't pretend. You don't hide. You speak truth. That's leadership." Her words hit me with unexpected warmth. "Do you know what leaders are made of?" she asked. "Not advantage, not privilege, but adversity." She placed a hand on my shoulder. "You've already lived through enough adversity to lead nations." I felt something inside me shift. Something soft, something strong. It was the first time an adult truly believed in me. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but out of genuine recognition. Over the next months, I grew faster than I ever had in my life. I learned public speaking. I learned leadership. I learned negotiation. I learned self-confidence. I learned resilience. I learned how to turn pain into power. And slowly, I became someone I barely recognized. I raised my hand first in discussions. I volunteered for leadership roles. I gave presentations that shook the room. I won competitions. I became a mentor to younger participants. I wrote essays that instructors called transformational. My classmates began turning to me for advice. Even the wealthy girl who once whispered about me now sat beside me, asking how I stayed so composed. I didn't feel invisible anymore. In fact, I felt unstoppable. One late evening, after a long day of workshops, I checked my email. There it was. A message from the University of Westbridge, one of the top universities in the country, the dream school I thought was beyond my reach. I clicked it. My heart raced. My breath froze. And then, in bold letters, "Congratulations. We are pleased to offer you the Future Voices full scholarship. Full scholarship. 100%. Everything paid. Tuition, housing, books, meals, travel, everything." I gasped so loudly I had to cover my mouth. My eyes flooded with tears. My knees gave out, and I sank to the floor, shaking. I cried, harder than I had cried in years. Not because I felt weak, but because for the first time, I felt chosen, worthy, enough, powerful, unstoppable. I whispered through tears. I made it. I made it out. Happiness rarely comes alone. It always arrives with a test. The next day, the school announced something that froze my blood. Our entire extended family was invited to my stepsister's graduation ceremony. And then I remembered the words from months earlier. "We don't want to see your face at her graduation." Yet now, I was someone completely different. Not the rejected girl, not the outsider, not the invisible one. I was the girl with a national leadership award, a scholarship, acceptance to a top university, and a future brighter than the pain behind me. And deep inside I knew I had to go to that graduation. Not for them, for myself. The graduation day arrived like a storm on the horizon. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, as if it knew the weight of what Emily was about to face. She stood outside the grand hall, her scholarship certificate and award folder clutched tightly to her chest. Her heart pounded. Every step she took toward the entrance echoed years of rejection, pain, and loneliness. Inside, the room was buzzing with families and graduates. The air was filled with laughter, chatter, and the scent of fresh flowers. And there, among the crowd, were the faces she had dreaded seeing for years. Her mother, sitting stiffly with an expression that tried to appear proud but faltered. Her stepsister, glowing in her graduation gown. The rest of the family, pretending to be happy. The words that haunted her for months replayed in her mind. "We don't want to see your face at her graduation." For a moment, Emily's legs trembled. Her chest tightened. Her palms were sweaty. But then she remembered something. All the nights she spent studying alone, all the tears she shed in silence, all the awards she won, all the battles she survived. She was no longer the girl they rejected. She was unstoppable. Emily straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked into the hall. Heads turned. Whispers circled. Some stared in shock. Some whispered, "Isn't that her?" Her mother's eyes widened. Her stepsister's smile faltered. For the first time, they saw Emily, not as the invisible girl, not as the one to be ignored, but as someone who had risen above every barrier they ever placed. She held her head high and approached the empty seat in the front row, ignoring the sting of their cold glares. She wasn't there for validation. She was there for herself. The ceremony began, and Emily listened as names were called, degrees handed out, applause echoing. When her stepsister's name was announced, Emily clapped politely. She watched her walk across the stage, her mother clapping louder than anyone else. Then, something inside Emily shifted. She realized, this wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. It was about showing herself that she belonged, not their approval. When her own moment arrived, a special recognition for student leadership and national awards, Emily walked confidently to the stage. The hall erupted with applause. Faces turned, eyes widened, phones lifted to capture the moment. For the first time, her mother's words could not hurt her. She smiled as she accepted her award and certificate. She whispered under her breath, "I made it. I see you now, and I see myself even more." After the ceremony, Emily's mother approached, hesitant, awkward, but earnest. I was wrong," her mother admitted softly. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you." Emily met her gaze calmly. "I survived without you noticing. But I also learned that my life isn't yours to control anymore." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. I'm proud of you." Emily nodded. "I know. And you don't have to earn my forgiveness. I already gave it to myself." For the first time, closure didn't require someone else's validation. Emily's stepsister approached next. She reached for Emily's hand. I always wished I could see you as my sister. Today I finally do." Emily squeezed her hand gently. She felt the weight of years lift, not completely gone, but lighter. The cycle of pain that had haunted her family ended with her. That night, Emily walked outside the hall into the crisp evening air. The city lights shimmered, and the stars above reminded her of every moment she had almost given up. She took a deep breath. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined her. It had become her fuel. She whispered to herself, "This is my life now. I am unstoppable. I am worthy. I am enough." And with that, Emily stepped forward, not into someone else's story, but into the life she had always fought for, ready to rise higher than she ever imagined. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows of Emily's dorm room, brushing the edges of her neatly stacked books and certificates. For the first time in years, she woke up without a weight on her chest, without the lingering echo of rejection or harsh words. She stretched, her arms trembling slightly, not from weakness, but from the raw, beautiful power of survival. Every scar she bore, every night she spent crying alone, every moment of doubt had led her here. And now, for the first time, she realized. She had truly arrived. Emily stepped onto the campus of Westbridge University, her scholarship in hand, her heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. The sprawling lawns, grand lecture halls, and clusters of students were intimidating, yet she walked with a quiet confidence, a strength that had been forged in fire. Her roommate, a cheerful girl named Lila, greeted her warmly. "Hey, you must be Emily. I've heard so much about you." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't expected. For the first time, she felt seen, not for her past pain, but for her capability, intelligence, and resilience. As she unpacked, she looked around at the small room that would be her sanctuary for the next 4 years. Her gaze lingered on the wall above her bed. She pinned her favorite motivational quotes there, alongside a picture of the graduation day that once scared her. She whispered softly to herself, "This is only the beginning." University life wasn't easy. Classes were challenging, professors demanding, and the social world overwhelming. There were moments when Emily felt out of place, moments when old insecurities tried to claw back. But now, she had something no one could take away, her inner strength. She started leading student groups, volunteering for leadership positions, mentoring younger students, and speaking at events. Every presentation she gave, every paper she submitted, every meeting she led carried the weight of her journey. She wasn't just participating, she was transforming. One evening, Emily was invited to speak at the university's annual leadership conference. Hundreds of students, faculty, and special guests filled the auditorium. She took the stage, her heart steady, her mind focused. She began, "I want to tell you a story. A story about pain, rejection, and the power of believing in yourself when no one else does. There was a time when I was told my presence didn't matter. I was told I wasn't wanted, that I didn't belong. But I survived, I rose. And today, I stand before you, not as a victim, but as a leader." Her voice, strong and unwavering, echoed through the hall. Tears streamed down faces, including students who had faced their own struggles. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Not polite applause, not superficial applause, genuine, heartfelt recognition of a life transformed. In that moment, Emily realized something profound. She had not just survived her past. She had transcended it. After the conference, Emily received a message from her mother. Emily, I watched your speech online. I don't know how to express this, I'm proud of you. Emily smiled, feeling a lightness she had never known. She responded, thank you, I've always been proud of myself. It wasn't just forgiveness, it was independence, self-respect, and inner peace. Her mother's words mattered less than they used to, not because she didn't love her, but because Emily had claimed her own power. She had turned the rejection, the pain, and the hurt into a launchpad for her life. Over the next years, Emily flourished. She graduated top of her class, with multiple awards. She became a mentor and motivational speaker, sharing her story with students nationwide. She traveled, studied, and made meaningful connections, building a life filled with purpose and joy. She never forgot the words that once haunted her, we don't want to see your face, because they had become her fuel, her ultimate motivator. Emily realized a profound truth. Your past doesn't define you. Your pain doesn't confine you. Your resilience does. And she had it in abundance. Years later, Emily returned to her hometown for a motivational event. Standing outside the same building where her stepsister's graduation had been, she smiled softly. The hallways were the same, but she was not. She walked in, confident, radiant, unstoppable. People turned to look. Whispers spread. Isn't that her? She paused, thinking of the little girl who once thought she had no place in the world. Then she whispered softly, I always had a place. I just had to find it for myself. She stepped forward, not to prove anyone wrong. Not for approval, but to honor the journey that made her who she was meant to be. And as she walked into the light, Emily knew. This was her victory, her life, her story. And it had only just begun.